Somewhere in the invisible folds of time, between one step and the next, there lies a moment that holds everything. It is not the future, it is not the past, it is the eternal now. And within that silence lives power. This is not an ordinary text, it is a key, a lit torch to guide you through the quiet spaces we so often overlook. Because while you wait, in the pause, the uncertainty, the apparent stillness, there is a soft voice speaking, and it is the voice of spirit. Inspired by the teachings of Emmet Fox, this sonic journey invites you to discover the sacred place between your thoughts, the interval between your desires and their fulfillment, the invisible portal where the soul aligns with the divine mind. Here you will learn to meditate not in perfect stillness, but in motion, amidst daily life, noise, and movement. To listen without hearing, to see without looking, to rest in the certainty that the silence between two steps is not emptiness. It is creation in its purest state. Get ready to walk without moving, to move without anxiety, to wait without losing yourself. Because in that threshold between action and response, the soul awakens. Welcome to meditation while you wait. The silence between two steps. Your journey begins now. There is a quiet moment, almost imperceptible, that we all go through. But almost no one honors it. The waiting. The bank line, the seat in a medical office, the platform where no train arrives, the call that never comes, the message that doesn't arrive, the reply that delays. Those minutes, sometimes hours, where all we can do is stop. And there, in that seeming emptiness, most people grow restless. We were raised to run. Since childhood, we've been told that stillness is wasted time, that everything valuable comes with speed, that the one who rushes ahead wins and the one who waits loses. But what if that isn't true? What if waiting isn't an obstacle but a spiritual opportunity? What if in those moments of invisible stillness the soul is being called to listen? What if waiting is divine training? Haste belongs to the ego, and the ego wants control, instant gratification, the solution now. But the spirit, that inner Christ dwelling within you, has no hurry. It lives in eternity, and from that eternal space, every moment holds purpose. Every delay is instructional, every pause is fertile. This book was not written to teach you how to endure the wait, nor to turn it into temporary distraction. It was written to reveal the creative power that lies within it. Because when a person waits from their higher consciousness, with faith, with awareness, with self-mastery, then the waiting ceases to be a prison and becomes a sanctuary. The ordinary man sees only the clock. The disciple of Christ sees the rhythm. Where the former sees dead time, the latter sees the living God. Each chapter in this book is a step, a living teaching, so you may learn to wait from the soul, not from anxiety. You don't need prior knowledge. You only need the willingness to see differently, to transform the way you live the everyday, to find God in the very moment when everything seems to stop. Because if you can see the Spirit in the breadline, in the bank, in the waiting room, then you will see Him everywhere. And there your true freedom begins. I'm not inviting you to wait better. I'm inviting you to wait with purpose, and with the living Christ inside you, and with the certainty that every second of waiting is a wordless prayer. And that, dear reader, is a gift that transforms life. Meditation while you wait. Based on the teachings of Emmet Fox, we've noticed that more than 80% of those who visit our channel aren't subscribed. You can support this project by pressing the subscribe button and liking the video. Thank you for inspiring us to keep creating more and better content for you. Are you ready to transform your life? Chapter 1. Waiting is a door to the Spirit. Nothing in life is accidental because God is principle, and principle does not improvise. Every instant, every circumstance, every second that seems empty is in truth a closed opportunity. But most people don't see it that way. When faced with waiting, they grow impatient. In delay, they become agitated. And when the world does not respond to their pace, they believe they're wasting time. But there is no wasted time when one is in God. There is only distracted consciousness, unable to see what the moment is offering. Waiting, that place no one wants to remain in, is actually a secret door that God left in the middle of the path. Not to punish, but to awaken. And whoever learns to open that door doesn't just find peace, they find God in His most intimate form. In today's world, everything pushes us towards speed. We praise those who multitask, as if the quantity of actions were a sign of fulfillment. But the soul does not grow in haste, it grows in stillness. And because many won't seek stillness on their own, life, in its wisdom, imposes it lovingly, disguised as delay. A humble, hard-working woman once approached me after a conference in New York. She said, "Dr. Fox, I feel like I lose my patience every time I have to wait. In line at the post office, on the tram, in the waiting room. I get irritated and feel as if God has forgotten me." I replied, "Dear one, if only you knew how many times God has tried to speak to you, and you didn't hear him because you hadn't yet learned how to wait." Waiting is the soul's terrain where the ego begins to dissolve, because ego needs control. It needs to decide the when and the how. But the spirit doesn't need control, it is already one with divine order. That's why when life slows you down, it's not abandonment. It's a call to listen, to what you cannot hear while you're running. Sometimes the most important message of the day doesn't arrive in a letter or a conversation. It arrives in the silence of a bank queue, when you realize you can do nothing else but be there, with yourself, with your breath, with your thoughts, with God. So what do we do while we wait? Many check their watches again and again. They look around, frown, grow impatient. Others dive into useless mental chatter, complaints, comparisons, imaginary scenarios. But there is a small group, you can be part of it, who learn to use waiting as an altar. Yes, an altar. Because wherever a person closes their eyes and connects with their inner being, there stands the altar of God. What if you understood that this moment of forced stillness is a meeting with your inner Christ? What if you knew that behind that delay lies a wisdom shaping your character, purifying your thoughts, teaching you to let go of the illusion of control? Waiting is not punishment. Waiting is spiritual fire. Jesus himself knew how to wait. He waited 30 years before beginning his ministry. He waited in the desert. He waited for his disciples to awaken, and he waited with infinite love on the cross. Everything that grows deep needs time, and every soul that becomes wise has learned the divine value of delay. In waiting, you can observe how your mind works. It gets restless, it judges. It projects into the future with anxiety. All of this is material to be purified. True spiritual growth doesn't happen in the spectacular moments. It happens in the everyday. In waiting, you discover if you know how to trust, how to release, how to be present. And what does it mean to be present? It means accepting the now without resistance. It means entering the frequency of God, who is never in a rush but is never late. When you accept the now, time stops being a tyrant and becomes an instrument. You stop counting the minutes and start living them. When you're in line on a stalled train in a moment you can't control, this is the sealed instant meant for contact with your source. God doesn't reveal himself in the noise but in the stillness. Like Elijah in the cave, you won't find him in the mighty wind or the earthquake, but in the still, small voice. 1 Kings 19:11-12. If your mind is agitated, even if the world stands still, you'll have no peace. But if your mind rests in God, even when everything around you stirs, you will stand firm like a rock. Here lies the secret. Every moment of waiting can become a miniature wilderness where the soul meets itself, if you choose to let it. Yet it's not enough to know this intellectually. You must train your mind to use waiting as a tool for transformation, because, as I have taught many times, thought creates. And if while waiting your thought is anchored in light, then that moment becomes a lamp. But if it is anchored in complaint, you will see only darkness. Waiting, well used, is wordless prayer. When the soul learns to sit in silence without demands, it begins to hear, not the noise of the world, but the whisper from above. An idea may come, an intuition, a solution, a deeper understanding. That is why I say, waiting is a door to the spirit. Not because it holds power on its own, but because it leaves us with no escape. And when you can no longer run outward, you must look inward. And within you lies the kingdom. Practical exercise, the waiting prayer. Next time you find yourself waiting, in line, at an appointment, at a stop, practice this. You need no object, only your attention. 1. Become aware of your body. Feel your feet on the ground, relax your shoulders, let your jaw rest. Breathe slowly and deeply. 2. Bless the place you are in. Silently say, "This place is holy because I am here and the Spirit of God is within me." 3. Bring your attention to the heart, not the physical organ but the spiritual center. Imagine there a soft and steady flame. That flame is your inner Christ. 4. Repeat an affirmation. Choose one of these or create your own. God is with me in this moment. All is well, for I am in divine order. Nothing is lacking, all is in its time. 5. Observe your surroundings without judgment. Look at the people with love. Think God is in them too. 6. Give thanks for this moment. Even if it doesn't seem useful, bless it. Say, "Thank you for this moment that trains me in peace." This exercise transforms any wait into spiritual practice. It does not require changing anything outside. only a shift in perspective. And every time you practice it, you move one step closer to Christ consciousness. Chapter 2. The Error of Resisting Silence. Most human beings are afraid of silence, though they may not admit it, though they may not even think it consciously. They flee from silence as one flees a dark room. They prefer noise, even inner noise, over facing the echo of their own soul. That's why when life pauses them and immerses them in a moment of waiting, the first reaction is not gratitude, but discomfort. But silence is not emptiness. Silence is fullness. It is pure presence. It is the language God uses when He wants to speak without words. Resisting silence is like closing your eyes at sunrise for fear of the light. It's an act that distances us from our source because the soul does not grow in the clamor. The soul is nurtured in stillness. Just as wheat needs the hidden sun beneath the earth to germinate, the soul needs silence to bloom. There is a fundamental error in common thinking, believing that doing nothing is a waste of time. But every gardener knows that a seed at rest is not inactive, but in preparation. In the same way, silence is not stagnation, it is spiritual gestation. And when the soul gestates, the entire universe conspires for new consciousness to be born. Even Jesus would retreat to the mountain to pray. He didn't bring crowds. He didn't bring noise. He went alone, in silence. Why? Because only in silence can we hear the voice that does not shout, the voice that does not impose but transforms, the voice that does not interrupt but guides. And why do we resist silence? Because in silence all masks fall. There is no audience, no approval, no stage. In silence, only the I am remains, facing the I believed myself to be. And that is uncomfortable. When the mind is left without external stimulation, it begins to reveal its hidden contents. Insecurities, fears, guilt, frustrated desires. But this is not punishment. It is a blessing. What rises to the surface can be healed, and what is seen with awareness begins to dissolve. The error lies in avoiding this encounter, in filling silence with distractions, music, radio, small talk, anything to keep us from hearing the voice of the soul. And do you know what happens when someone can hold silence without fleeing? Silence stops being an enemy and becomes their teacher. It begins to reveal deep truths, not as new ideas, but as memories of something long known and forgotten. The soul begins to remember that it is already free, already wise, already a child of God. There's a simple story I once heard in the countryside. A young man wanted to learn to play the violin. He was fascinated by fast melodies and virtuosic notes. He went to an old master and said, "Teach me to play fast." The master looked at him and gave him a single exercise: hold one long, clean note for a full minute. The young man protested, "But that's boring." And the master replied, "If you cannot hold a single note in stillness, you will never be able to play 1,000 in harmony." So it is with the spiritual life. If you cannot inhabit silence, you will not interpret the chords of the soul, and all your knowledge will remain in the mental plane without inner harmony. Resisting silence is resisting God, for God does not impose, but He is always present, and manifests best when the noise ceases. When a person learns not to flee from silence, not to fill it compulsively, they begin to experience a different kind of peace. It is not the peace of physical rest, nor the peace of worldly success. It is the peace of knowing that you need nothing more than to be, that you need do nothing to deserve divine love, that you are already included in the plan. And this understanding comes not from much reading or doing, but from deep listening to being. Have you noticed how often, while waiting in a line or in a forced pause, the first impulse is to pick up a newspaper, start a useless conversation, check the time 10 times, think about problems, or invent new worries? All of it is a way of fleeing silence, because silence demands presence, and presence is terrifying when you don't know who you are. But if you remain, if you do not run, if you mentally sit as one sits before a deep well, you will begin to see your own reflection, and in that reflection, you will see God. So don't say, "I have to wait." Say instead, "I am entering silence. I am being called by Spirit." Change your language and your experience will change. For language shapes the mind, and the mind creates your world. Once, while waiting in a bank, I observed a mother with her young son. The child began to grow restless. He pulled on her dress, shifted around, and complained. The mother, instead of getting angry, took his hand and whispered in his ear, Shh! Listen. Don't you hear how this place breathes? The child went still, looked around, and sat with new eyes. That woman, without knowing it, taught him how to meditate in silence. That is the learning I offer you today, to stop resisting silence and to begin listening to it as if it were the breath of God. When you do, your entire body will respond. It will relax, grow lighter. Your heart will stop racing, your mind will stop inventing, and what once seemed a useless delay will become an intimate session with eternity. Never forget this. Spiritual life does not begin when you finish your tasks. It begins when you are capable of stopping, without guilt and without hurry. That is where your freedom begins. That is where your peace is born. That is where Christ dwells. Practical exercise, listening to silence. You can do this exercise anytime you're waiting, in line, in a waiting room while someone is late, or simply when you are alone. Close your eyes for a moment, if you're in a safe place. If not, just lower your gaze and soften your focus. Take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale slowly through your mouth. Do this 3 times. Say mentally, I enter the silence, God is here. Listen not with your outer ears, but with your inner attention. Don't seek anything, just listen. Listen to the sounds without judging. Listen to your breath as if it were a melody. Listen to what cannot be heard, the background of the moment. Remain this way for 1 or 2 minutes. If thoughts arise, don't reject or follow them. Simply return to listening. When you finish, give thanks for the moment. Say mentally, thank you, God, for this silence that speaks of you. Do this exercise every time the world imposes a pause on you. Make silence your teacher, not your enemy. Every silent moment you pass without fleeing is a step upward. Because in silence, God is not absent. He is waiting to be recognized. Chapter 3. The soul awakens in the not doing. The world values doing. We applaud the one who works without rest, who produces, who fills every minute with some visible action. Worth is measured by activity, by results, by tangible achievements. But the soul does not awaken through doing. It awakens through not doing. And this confuses many, for it seems like a contradiction. How can something grow when nothing is being done? How can one move forward by stopping? How can one awaken by closing their eyes? The answer is this: the soul does not abide by the laws of the world, but by the laws of the Spirit. And in the Spirit, rest is as sacred as action. Silence is as powerful as speech. Attitude is as creative as movement. When you stop doing, you begin to be. When you stop running, you can see. When you stop controlling, you allow God to act within you. There is an old story that illustrates this. A wise man visited a very prosperous man known for his busy life. The sage found him surrounded by books, papers, assistants, appointments, and clocks everywhere. The man said proudly, I have no time to waste. Every minute is occupied. Every moment has a purpose. The wise man looked at him with compassion and said, Your soul is starving, but you're too busy cooking to hear its cry. The soul doesn't eat productivity. It feeds on presence. And he left. The soul awakens when a person stops running, when they sit without haste, when they breathe without demand, when they are with themselves without needing entertainment. But this is not understood as long as one believes their worth lies in what they do. That is why so many are exhausted, why so many feel empty. God does not love you for what you do. God loves you for what you are, and you are His child. That alone is enough. That alone fills the universe, and if a tree bore fruit all year long, it would wither. It needs its winter, its time of apparent inactivity, and in that time, its roots grow deeper. The same happens with the soul. In times of not doing, the spiritual root descends and strengthens. Many people have told me, Dr. Fox, I feel like I'm not making progress. I'm in a phase where I can't seem to get anything done. And I always answer, maybe it's not that you're not progressing, but that you're growing roots. Maybe God has paused you not to punish you, but to deepen you. The Christ within you doesn't need your human efforts. He needs your surrender, your availability, your silence. And that is only found in the not doing, not in idle leisure, but in active contemplation, in that state where nothing happens outwardly, but everything happens inwardly. The world pushes you to fill every moment with activity, but the kingdom of God does not come with activity. It comes when you stop long enough to notice. Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you. And to enter, you don't have to go, you have to stop going. You don't have to rise, you have to descend into the heart. There comes a moment in the soul's life when speeches and explanations no longer help. What is needed is stillness, not from obligation, not from pressure, but from understanding. And when the soul understands this, it begins to taste a different peace, not the peace of a job well done, but the peace of a self-remembered, a peace without merit, without struggle, without wear, the peace of knowing you are already one with God, and you only need to remember it. And how is something so deep remembered? In the not doing, in that moment when you are not fixing, not searching, not solving, just being. And then you hear it. A whisper deep in the chest. A wordless certainty, a presence that does not impose but fills everything. The soul then awakens, like a sleeping child who, noticing the sunlight, opens their eyes. Not because someone shook them, but because the light gently invited them to see. This is how your soul awakens, not by force but by attitude, not by noise but by silence. So when the world makes you wait, in a line, in traffic, in a waiting room, when something delays, when someone doesn't arrive, when a plan falls apart, when life doesn't respond, every one of those seemingly useless moments is in truth a sacred invitation to the awakening of the soul. But only if you choose to see it that way, because not doing is not just stopping the body, it is silencing the reactive mind, the mind that tries to control, explain, justify, anticipate. When that mind falls silent, another awareness arises, one that needs no words, no reasons, no rewards. That is your Christ consciousness, the one that simply is. And when you dwell in it, you discover that everything you sought in the world, peace, safety, love, meaning, was already inside. You just couldn't see it because you were too busy trying to find it elsewhere. You must learn to make space for the Spirit. And that space is not filled with activity. It is filled with silence, with listening, with presence. Do not fear the not doing. Fear more the doing without soul. Because doing without soul leads you away from yourself. But not doing with awareness reconnects you with the eternal. Jesus said, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." That rest is not physical, it is spiritual. And it is found not when you do more, but when you finally let go. Practical exercise, awakening in stillness. This practice is for any moment when you're forced to stop. You can use it while waiting for something or someone. Pause completely, stop, don't act, don't look for anything, don't speak, just pause. Say mentally, now I have nothing to do, I only have to be. Feel your breath, don't change it, just observe it. Inhale, exhale, recognize its rhythm. Feel that it is life breathing in you. Feel your body, not from tension, but from presence. Feel the warmth, the pulse, the solidity. Everything is held by God. Repeat with each exhalation, I am awake. I am here, I am at peace. Remain like this for 3 minutes. If thoughts arise, let them pass. Don't fight them. Return to your breath, return to your being. This exercise seeks no result. It simply trains you to inhabit not doing with awareness, and the more you practice it, the more you will feel that your soul is awake, even when the world is still. And there, in that silence full of presence, you will understand God never sleeps, God simply is, and so are you. Chapter 4. How to think without thinking. Thought is a wonderful tool, but like every instrument, it must be used wisely. When thought is left undisciplined, it becomes a cruel master. But when it is illuminated by the Spirit, it becomes a faithful servant building the kingdom of God in both mind and life. Many believe that thinking is the same as reasoning, but it is not. True spiritual thought is not the endless crafting of ideas, nor the mechanical repetition of concepts, nor the ceaseless analysis of situations. That is the work of the lower mind. Spiritual thought is something else. It is communion with truth. To think without thinking, then, is a higher form of consciousness. It is to be awake without effort. It is to know without reasoning. It is to perceive without the need for explanation. It is a way of living in the presence with full awareness, free from judgment and worry. Is this possible for everyone? Yes, because we all carry within us the mind of Christ, as St. Paul teaches, and that mind does not wear itself out with speculation. That mind knows, intuits, discerns, and acts from peace. Why then is it important to learn how to think without thinking? Because the ordinary mind, the untrained mind, does not know how to be still. At the smallest pause, in the slightest silence, it rushes to fabricate useless thoughts. It worries, it complains, it compares, it fears, it imagines disaster, it replays past conversations, it anticipates problems that haven't even arrived. We see this every day, especially in moments of waiting. Observe any person in a long line. What is their mind doing? Rarely is it calm. Almost always, it is resisting the moment, seeking distraction, silently complaining or generating inattention. But the disciple of Christ learns something higher. They learn to think without thinking, to use the mind without letting the mind use them. Jesus said, "Do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink." Matthew 6:25. That is the key, for worry is born of a mind not yet illuminated. And when the mind is lit by the light of God, worry ceases, but clarity does not. The higher mind, when touched by divine light, functions without friction. It works like a compass, silent, yet always pointing the way. That is the mind that thinks without thinking. How is it trained? Through observation, surrender, prayer, and especially by using everyday moments of waiting as spiritual laboratories. A nurse once told me that every time she had to wait between shifts, she felt anxious. She couldn't sit still without doing something. So I taught her to practice presence without forcing thought. I told her, sit and breathe, look around, don't try to think of God, just be with Him. A week later, she said to me, "Dr. Fox, I've discovered something beautiful. I sit in silence and don't think, but I feel. I feel a peace I've never known, and when I return to my tasks, everything flows better." That is the key. It's not about stopping the mind, but freeing it from the compulsion to overthink. It's about rising higher, like one stepping out of a stormy river to a serene mountaintop. Because some thoughts are like stones that drag you down, and others are like wings that lift you, and the latter are not born of effort, but of alignment with being. Imagine, dear reader, that you are in a long line waiting for something that never seems to come. If you don't know how to think without thinking, your mind will toss you from one thought to another. What a waste of time. Why is it taking so long? Something must have gone wrong. These people are so slow, but if you know how to think without thinking, you will live that moment differently. You'll breathe, relax. And without saying a word, you will be thinking something like, "I am at peace. I am with God. This moment belongs to me, all is well here." And though it may seem like you're not thinking, in truth, you are sustaining a high mental vibration that is more powerful than 1,000 agitated thoughts. There is a kind of thought that needs no words. It's like an inner fragrance that fills your mind with light, like a silent melody that accompanies you without interruption. That is thinking without thinking. It is living with alert and loving awareness. It is seeing without judging. It is waiting without despairing. It is moving without haste. Some believe this is mystical, reserved for saints, but it is not. It is the natural state of the mind when it is in contact with the inner Christ. And because you are a child of God, you have access to this state at any time. You don't need to be perfect. You only need to desire truth more than your compulsive thoughts. How is it practiced? The key lies in creating space between one thought and another. It's not about fighting the mind. That only adds confusion. It's about observing what arises without clinging to anything. For example, if you're stuck in traffic, instead of thinking, "This always happens to me," you can breathe gently and say in your mind, "This moment allows me to practice presence." Then, simply stay in awareness, feel your body, listen to the sounds, look without analyzing, repeat a sacred word in your mind like peace or God or thank you. Soon you'll begin to experience a more subtle kind of thought, more intuitive, calmer, and although it may not seem like thinking, it is. It is thought born of being. It is divine intelligence operating within you, effortlessly. When you learn this, you will no longer fear waiting, because every wait will become a chance to rise. And more than that, you will notice that solutions come faster, ideas flow, answers appear. Because when compulsive thought stops, you make room for God's wisdom to move. Remember, be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. That stillness is not just of the body, it is the stillness of the soul that knows it is upheld by a higher intelligence. Do not worry if it feels difficult at first. It's like learning a new language. The mind is used to shouting, but you can teach it to whisper. And more than that, you can teach it to fall silent with love so that the spirit may speak. Practical exercise, the awareness of the whisper. You can do this exercise whenever you have at least 5 minutes of waiting. The goal is to train your mind to think without effort, tension, or distraction. Choose a sacred word that inspires you. It can be God, peace, presence, love, Christ. Sit or stand with gentle attention. Don't stiffen, just relax your body. Inhale slowly, and as you exhale, repeat your word mentally. Don't chant it mechanically. Let it flow like an inner whisper. Stay with that word in your mind. If another thought appears, don't fight it. Watch it pass and return to your word. After a few minutes, even let the word go. Just remain in silence. Observe, feel, stay. When you return to your activities, do so gently, and if you can, carry that same silent awareness with you. This exercise does not eliminate thought. It transforms it, because it's not about emptying yourself, but about filling yourself with presence. Do it every day, in every wait, in every pause, and you'll see how your mind becomes a channel of light, and your life a living expression of Christ in action. To think without thinking is to pray without words, and that is the highest prayer. Chapter 5. Discovering God in the breadline. On a grey morning in any city, a long line winds in front of the neighborhood bakery. Sleepy faces, bundled bodies, hands in pockets, glances avoiding connection. Some chew on hurried thoughts, others skim old newspapers, a few resign themselves to the slow passage of time. There, in the midst of this banal scene, so seemingly far from the spiritual, lies the world's quietest sanctuary, the present moment, dressed in bread, cold, and waiting. God is there. Yes, even if unnoticed, even if unspoken, even if no one calls his name. For God doesn't need to be summoned to be present. He is, and all that is in him. But why don't we see him? Because we've placed God in a place we rarely visit. We imagine him in temples, in Sundays, in prayers said on our knees, but not in the breadline. We don't look for him in the murmur of the street, or in a neighbor's sigh, or in the sleepy smile of the baker. And yet, that's exactly where he most longs to reveal himself, because the divine delights not in pomp, but in simplicity. He hides like the treasure Jesus spoke of, buried in a field, and that field is daily life. A woman once told me after a conference, "Dr. Fox, I want to see God, but my life is so ordinary. Every day is the same. I wake up, cook, stand in lines, clean the house, go to bed. Where is God in that?" I replied, "Dear one, if you don't see him in that, you'll never see him, because God is in everything. But you must be too. God's presence is universal, but it only reveals itself where attention is present." Discovering God in the breadline is an act of spiritual attention. It's not that God appears because you call him. It's that you begin to see him because your awareness has drawn near. Bread, so simple and everyday, has symbolized spirit since ancient times. Jesus broke it, blessed it, and called it his body, not because wheat is holy in itself, but because the ordinary, when seen in God, becomes sacred. The same is true for waiting. Few moments offer greater potential for spiritual awakening than unavoidable delay. You cannot speed up the person ahead. You can't rush the baker. You can't decide the timing of others. You can only choose your awareness, and that is where the miracle begins. In the midst of that line where others see wasted time, you can see a doorway to eternity. You can say to yourself, "This moment doesn't belong to me. It belongs to God, and I surrender to his rhythm." That thought alone transforms the atmosphere, for when the mind surrenders to the hour, it communes with being. Look around you. Every person in that line carries within the same spirit. They may not know it, they may not show it, but Christ dwells in every one of them, without exception. Observe them with love, without judgment, without haste. Say mentally, "God is in this man, God is in that woman, God is in this child, we are all one in the divine mind." Then the line becomes a temple, the ground becomes an altar, and you become the priest of the moment. No incense needed, no chants required. It is enough to recognize the divine in the common. That is what the awakened soul does. It sees God where others see routine. Christ did not come to crown temples, but to awaken the human mind. And that happens not in extraordinary moments, but in the simplest ones. When you wait for your turn at the bakery, you can practice wordless prayer. You can breathe consciously. You can repeat an affirmation. You can send thoughts of peace to those around you. You can bless the ground you stand on. All of this is meditation in action. All of it is discovering God in the breadline. And if you learn to do it there, you can do it anywhere. True spirituality needs no special conditions, only your willingness. Watch your thoughts while you wait. Do you grow impatient, complain, feel bored? All of that is raw material. All of it can be transformed. not by force, but by light. It's not about fighting impatience, but about bringing presence to the moment. And presence dissolves resistance like sunlight dissolves fog. Remember this, nothing is profane if you are in God, and nothing is routine if your mind is anchored in love. The breadline is a symbol of all human waiting. The wait for love, for healing, for change, for forgiveness, for revelation. And in every line, visible or invisible, God is present, watching with infinite love, waiting for you to recognize Him. When you do, the line becomes lighter, the bread tastes different, the world softens, not because it changed, but because you did. And that is all that's required. A change in vision, a shift in vibration, a turn in attitude, not toward the external, but toward the understanding that everything is part of the divine plan. Jesus said, "Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God." And that word is not always spoken. Sometimes it's a shared silence in a line, a conscious sigh, a kind gesture, a wait without complaint. In such acts, the soul becomes bread for the world, and the miracle of multiplication is fulfilled. Your peace spreads. Your joy becomes contagious. Your silence teaches, because once the soul has discovered God in the simple, it becomes itself a manifestation of spirit. Practical exercise, sanctifying the line. This practice will help you transform any line, at the bakery, the market, the bank, the tram, into a spiritual experience. Become aware of your body. Feel your feet on the ground. Relax your shoulders. Feel that you are not waiting, you are present. Observe your mind. What thoughts arise? Is there hurry, judgment, anxiety? Don't fight them. Just observe and say, "This thought is not me. I am the one who observes." Bring your attention to your heart. Feel a small flame there, soft, warm. That is your divine presence. Silently bless each person in the line, one by one. I bless you. You are a child of God. Bless the bread you are about to receive, even before it's in your hands. This bread nourishes my body and lifts my soul. Give thanks for this moment. Thank you, God, for this weight that draws me closer to you. Do this each day, and soon you'll discover that every line, every pause, every wait is a threshold to the eternal. Because where you are with God, there is the kingdom, and the kingdom of God begins in the breadline, when you choose to open the eyes of your soul. Chapter 6. The Secret Rhythm of Delay. Delay has a bad reputation. It is seen as the enemy of efficiency, an obstacle to progress, a flaw in the system. We have been taught that arriving late is a failure, that waiting is a waste, that immediacy is better. But that is a superficial, limited view, born from the world of the senses, not the world of the spirit. God is never late. God manifests in His own rhythm, and that rhythm is perfect. The problem is not that God delays, but that we do not yet know how to wait. We fail to understand that in every apparent delay there is a secret rhythm, an invisible order, a silent music that can only be heard with the ear of the soul. One who walks with God learns that time is an instrument, not a tyrant. They learn that what appears as inactivity is preparation. What appears as interruption is teaching. What seems like slowness is sacred rhythm. Think of this. If a fruit ripens before its time, it lacks flavor. If a flower opens before its stem can hold it, it breaks. If a child is born too early, it suffers. Everything that is true manifests at its exact time, neither before nor after. So it is with the life of the soul. You cannot force enlightenment, you cannot rush forgiveness, you cannot accelerate healing. Every spiritual step has its own tempo, and when we respect it, life becomes a dance. Have you seen how the sea breathes? Rising, falling, advancing, retreating. Have you noticed how the heart beats? Pulse, pause, pulse, pause. Life itself is made of invisible rhythms that sustain all we see. And every delay is, in truth, a closed pause between two impulses of the spirit. When you resist delay, you interrupt the rhythm. You fall out of harmony, like someone dancing out of step. But when you accept, breathe, and surrender, you enter the hidden current of God and begin to flow with His music. That is true faith, to trust the rhythm even if you don't understand it. People often ask me, why hasn't my answer come yet, Dr. Fox? Why hasn't my healing, my job, my reconciliation manifested? And I always answer, because you have not yet learned God's music. You are watching the world's clock when you should be listening with your heart. God does not delay. God prepares. And that preparation happens not only in circumstances, but within you. Because many times the delay is not for your desire to arrive, it is for you to become ready to receive it. A woman once shared her frustration with not finding a job. She had prayed, done affirmations, sent applications. Everything seemed stuck. I said, "Perhaps the job is already ready, but you still need to quiet your fear, heal your self-image, forgive your past. The delay is not punishment. It's a pause for your growth." And so it was. In time, after she stopped struggling, she understood what she needed to release, and once she let go, everything opened. The job came, and more than that, it came with peace. That's why I say every delay is a disguised teacher. It doesn't show up with a loud voice or a cloak of light. It comes in silence, in waiting, in time. But if you recognize it, accept it, listen to it, it will teach you what no book can. It teaches true patience, trust in goodness, seeing without anxiety, hearing what only the quiet can reveal. A child cannot force its own growth. A tree cannot force its fruit. And a soul cannot force its awakening. It can only be willing. It can only surrender. It can only enter the rhythm. When you align with God's rhythm, time becomes a friend. Each day gains meaning. Each wait has purpose. Each second becomes an opportunity. And that is not resignation, that is wisdom. Resignation says, "I can't do anything." Wisdom says, "I'm doing the most important thing." Trusting. Delay is not a hole in the road, it is part of the road. And if you embrace it with faith, you'll see it brings gifts that could not come any other way. Jesus never rushed, never ran, never acted under pressure. Even when his friend Lazarus died, he did not panic. He waited. He arrived when the body was already in the tomb, and still he said, "Thank you, Father, for you always hear me." And the miracle happened, because God's time is not man's time, but it is always the perfect time. In your life, what are you waiting for? An answer, a change, a manifestation? Whatever it is, it's already on the way. But it will arrive when you are in harmony, and that harmony begins when you stop resisting the rhythm. Like a symphony, there are long notes, short notes, silences between sounds, but all are part of the beauty. So too, every delay is part of the symphony of your soul. Practical exercise, listening to God's rhythm. This exercise is for practicing whenever you face an unexpected delay. Acknowledge the delay, don't deny it, don't judge it. Just observe. This is not happening on my time, but on God's time. Breathe in rhythm. Inhale to the count of 4, exhale to the count of 4. Repeat several times. Feel yourself aligning with a rhythm greater than yourself. Repeat mentally, "I trust the rhythm of God." There is no mistake, there is no loss. Everything moves in harmony. Recall a past situation where something took time but turned out better than expected. Feel that same wisdom working now. Listen to the silence, don't try to fill it. Just remain in it. If you wish, repeat in your mind, "I am within the sacred rhythm." Nothing is withheld, everything is aligning. Bless the moment, say, "Thank you for this pause, this is where my next step is being born." Practice this whenever life seems to move slower than you'd like, and you'll find that instead of frustration, you begin to feel a sweet expectancy, like one who knows the train is coming, even if it's not yet in sight. And it will come because God never fails. He is only waiting for you to learn to dance with his rhythm. And in that dance, your soul will find the music of the kingdom. Chapter 7. The presence that accompanies you. You are not alone, you never were, you never will be. Even if your mind tells you otherwise, even if your surroundings suggest it, even if your senses insist on the illusion of separation, an infinite, wise, and loving presence always accompanies you. It is not an angel with wings, nor a mysterious shadow, nor an invisible figure walking behind you. It is something more intimate, more real, more powerful, the presence of God within you. That presence is life itself. It is the breath you breathe, the force that moves your blood, the impulse that drives you to seek the truth, even when you don't fully understand what you are searching for. This presence does not appear only when you pray, nor only when you suffer, nor only when you feel inspired. This presence is constant. It is the only faithful witness of your existence. It has been with you in every fall, every doubt, every smile. It has been there, even when you believed you did not deserve its company. Many search for God as if he were far away, as if he lived in some distant place that must be called, convinced, or earned through merits. But God is not far. God is here within. Now his presence is not activated by your words. It is revealed when you quiet your mind and allow your soul to recognize it. This is fundamental. God does not come when you call him. You become aware that he is already here, and that awareness changes everything. Some people believe they need to go to a quiet place to feel God. But I tell you, a bus stop, a bench, a tram station, a waiting room, your darkened room, all these can be temples if you are aware of his presence. A man once said to me, Dr. Fox, how can I feel God surrounded by noise, people, problems? I answered, you don't need outer silence, you need inner silence. You don't need peace in the street, you need peace in your mind. There and only there does the presence manifest. How do you cultivate that awareness? First, by stopping the search for sensations. God is not an emotion, God is a principle. Presence does not always produce warmth in the chest or tears in the eyes. Sometimes it manifests as a simple certainty, a calm without cause, a serene stability. When you face a long, uncomfortable, unexpected wait and choose to close the eyes of judgment and open those of the soul, you can silently say, God is here. This presence sustains me. This moment is full of life. It doesn't matter if you are standing, tired, unsure how much longer it will take. There, in that not knowing, you can discover that you know one thing for sure. You are not alone, and that is enough. Because presence doesn't need to prove anything, it just needs to be recognized. Just as the sun doesn't need you to see it to give warmth, just as the air doesn't need you to think about it to keep you alive, this presence is your true self. It is not an addition, not a visitor. It is the foundation of your existence. What you call I, when cleared of history, fears, and memories, is truly the reflection of that presence. Why do we forget this? Because we have learned to trust the senses more than the spirit. Because we are used to superficial thinking. Because hurry, worry, comparison, and judgment have become constant noise in our awareness. But even amid that noise, presence does not leave. It only waits. It is like a loving mother who, seeing her child distracted in play, does not interrupt. She knows she is there. She knows the child will look back at her. She only waits for the moment he seeks her, and then she smiles without reproach. So too God does not impose, does not interrupt, does not punish. He remains. And when you pause, breathe, and say, here you are, my God, the connection is restored. Though it was never broken, only forgotten. A woman once wrote to me, I have started practicing God's presence while waiting for the bus. I do nothing special, just breathe, look at the sky, and say, you are here. Sometimes I feel such deep peace that I forget to check if the bus is coming. That is the beginning of awakening. It is not ecstasy, it is familiarity. It is knowing that the most loving being in the universe is always with you, and that you don't need to do anything extraordinary to notice it. Just be. But the world doesn't teach this. The world teaches that you must strive, deserve, seek, and prove, and that creates anxiety. But the Spirit teaches that it is enough to be willing, to remember, to open your mind to my presence, and then everything changes. Not because the world has changed, but because you no longer inhabit it from loneliness, but from unity. When you walk in unity, hurry fades, complaint dissolves, waiting becomes an altar. What happens when you start living with that constant awareness? You begin to notice things you never saw before: kindness in a stranger's face, beauty in a fallen leaf, silence in the middle of noise, solutions where you only saw problems. Because presence does not just accompany you, it teaches you, whispers to you, guides you, gives you ideas, inspires you, lifts you, and all this can happen while standing in line as the world grows impatient and you simply breathe and say in your heart, thank you, God, for being here. Practical exercise, walking with presence. This exercise will help you anchor the awareness that you are not alone and that every moment of waiting can be divine company. When you find yourself waiting in a line, traffic, or any delay, take an inner pause. Stop mentally. Don't seek distraction. Just return to yourself. Take 3 deep, conscious breaths. With each exhale, release tension, judgment, and hurry. Bring your attention to the center of your chest. Imagine a point of warm light there. That is the presence within you. Mentally say, I am not alone, God is here, this waiting is sacred. Stay like this for a few minutes. If your mind wanders, don't fight it. Simply return to the affirmation. When you finish, silently say, thank you, God, for walking with me. Though all moves outside, you are my center. Practice this as often as you can. Every wait can be an appointment. Every delay, a room where the teacher speaks. And you, attentive student, no longer complain. You give thanks. Because now you know presence is not a future promise. It is the eternal now, and it accompanies you with absolute faithfulness in every step, every pause, every wait. Chapter 8. The Tamed Mind in the Waiting Room. The waiting room is a unique setting. It's a place where time seems frozen, where no one wants to be, yet everyone must pass through. It's the midpoint between a problem and its possible solution, between I've arrived and they haven't called me yet. Here the body sits, but the mind does not. If the mind hasn't been tamed, it begins to wander, to complain, to invent worries, to rebel against the present moment. And here lies the key to this chapter. The mind is like an untamed animal. If you don't master it, it drags you along. If you don't watch it, it possesses you. But if you train it with love, if you gently and patiently guide it, it can become your most powerful ally, your faithful servant, your channel to hear the voice of God. In the waiting room, most people experience a subtle form of torture, being physically still but mentally restless. They don't know what to do with this dead time and fill it with all kinds of useless thoughts. Why is it taking so long? Surely they forgot me. This is disrespect. I have 1,000 things to do. This turns a potentially sacred moment into an inner battlefield. When the mind is untamed, it resists waiting because waiting reminds it that it does not have control. And the mind, in its lower state, wants to control everything. It wants to know what will happen, when, how, and why. But the soul does not need to know. The soul only needs to be. That's why the waiting room is a perfect place to train the mind, to educate it as you would a restless child, with loving firmness, with consistency, without rituals, without punishments, but with presence. How do you tame the mind? Not by fighting it, but by teaching it another way to think. Not by forcing it to be silent, but by showing it the value of silence. Not by pushing it toward optimism, but by inviting it to see through the lens of the spirit. Once, at a hospital in Chicago, I saw an elderly woman sitting in the waiting room. Everyone was nervous, checking their watches, whispering to each other, but not her. She was knitting and softly murmuring something. I approached and asked what she was saying. She replied, "I'm giving thanks for every stitch I knit. I give thanks. For every minute that passes, I say, God is with me." That woman hadn't read any metaphysical treatises, but she had tamed her mind. She was not a slave to her surroundings. She was the mistress of her inner world, and that is possible for everyone. But it requires decision, practice, and a sincere desire to live in peace, not only when all is well, but also when you're waiting in a crowded room with no explanations. True spiritual mastery is not measured in temples, but in moments of waiting. When you enter a waiting room with a tamed mind, nothing disturbs you. You sit, breathe, observe, listen without judging. You don't anticipate. You don't dramatize. And if a negative thought arises, you don't suppress it, but you don't feed it either. You simply watch it pass, like watching a cloud drift by without letting it hide the sun. That is true freedom. A trained mind does not need the world to change. It does not wait for perfect conditions. It is like a faithful dog sitting quietly at your feet, calm, serene, attentive. It doesn't jump at every noise. It doesn't bite the passerby. It is simply present, available. But how do you achieve this if your mind has been restless for years? Start slowly. Don't expect perfection. Every waiting room is a free meditation class. Every moment of nothing to do is an opportunity to practice inner mastery. Don't try to stop thinking. That's like telling the sea not to have waves. Instead, gently guide your thoughts. Lead them toward affirmations of truth. Use the time to pray silently, to repeat phrases like, "I am in divine order, I lack nothing. God guides this moment." This waiting is part of the journey. And if your mind wanders, bring it back. Not with anger, but with firmness, like taking the hand of a distracted child and guiding them back to the path. Taming the mind doesn't mean crushing it. It means teaching it to serve the soul instead of tormenting it. It means you decide which thoughts to nourish and which to release. The more you practice, the more you'll notice the waiting room transforms. Not because the place changes, but because you do. What was impatience becomes contemplation. What was anxiety becomes presence. What was tension becomes prayer. And then the miracle happens. You realize you will never again be trapped by waiting, because waiting is only suffering when the mind resists. But when the mind has become gentle to the spirit, waiting becomes worship. Practical exercise, mental training in the waiting room. This simple ritual can be done every time you find yourself waiting, when your body must be still, but your mind wants to run. Observe your mind as if it was someone else. Sit and say silently, "I will observe my mind without identifying with it." Imagine your thoughts are noises in another room. Sort and classify your thoughts. Don't judge them, just classify. Useful thoughts, useless thoughts, negative thoughts. Choose a useful thought or a sacred affirmation. Repeat softly inside, "I am at peace. God accompanies me. Everything arrives in its perfect time." Visualize your mind as a puppy, not guilty, just needing direction. Every time it gets distracted, gently bring it back. This is not a time to worry, but to trust. When your wait ends, give thanks. Thank you, God, for this spiritual training. Thank you for this lesson in presence. Do this every day. Over time, your mind will become like a calm lake. Nothing will stir it for long. And from that serene center, you will live in the world without being swept away by it. Because a tamed mind is a free mind. And he who masters his mind has already begun to walk like Christ on the waters. Chapter 9. Remedies for Unexpected Moments. Life is full of surprises. Some are sweet, others uncomfortable, and some completely break the mold, disrupt the planned course of the day, forcing us to wait, to change, to readjust. There are interruptions that hurt, others that irritate, some that paralyze. But all of them, without exception, can be used as gateways to awakening if you know what to do with your mind in that moment. Unexpected moments, a cancelled appointment, a long line, unexpected news, a call that doesn't come, a traffic setback, have one thing in common. They interrupt the illusion of control. And in that break, you can choose between two paths, the automatic reaction or the spiritual response. The automatic reaction leads to fear, anger, judgment, complaint. The spiritual response leads to the center, to faith, to self-mastery, to peace. And the most powerful tool to enter that spiritual response is the metaphysical treatment. What is a treatment? It is a conscious affirmation of spiritual truth held with faith to correct a false appearance. It is not about repeating empty phrases, deceiving yourself, or suppressing emotions. It is about affirming what is eternal and true amid what seems confusing and temporary. A treatment does not change God, it changes you. It does not persuade an external force. It awakens your own consciousness to the law of good. God is already perfect, unchanging, pure love. The treatment aligns you with that truth. And from that alignment, the external appearance begins to transform. Now, how do you apply treatments in unexpected moments? Without closing your eyes, isolating yourself, or sitting in prayer posture? It's very simple. It happens in the mind, in the heart, in the moment. Wherever you are, however you are, on the train, at the office, in traffic, on the street, all it takes is one decision, not to let the situation control your consciousness. I will now give you some brief and profound treatments designed for specific moments. Don't memorize them all. Choose one or two and make them your own. Repeat them as you would drink fresh water, not as a chore, but as activating a higher law. 1. When everything suddenly stops. Traffic, power outage, system failure. This apparent interruption is part of divine order. God guides me now. Everything arranges itself for my good. Nothing real is lost and I am at peace. 2. When someone makes you wait or breaks their word. No person has power over my peace. God is in me and in them. I release judgment and resentment. All is in harmony now and I trust perfect timing. 3. When unexpected news shakes your spirit. God is my only source and this news does not define my life. Truth remains intact. My good cannot be stolen and I choose faith. 4. When you lose something, an object, appointment, opportunity. Nothing real can be lost. What is mine by divine right cannot escape me. If something leaves, it is because something better is coming. I am upheld by the principle. 5. When you feel anxiety during uncertain waiting. God acts now. I don't need to know how or when. I only need to trust. I align myself with peace, and this waiting is sacred. 6. When a device fails, a plan falls apart, or something goes wrong. There are no mistakes in God. This appearance has no power. Good reveals itself here and now. I release tension and receive the solution. These treatments must be lived, not mechanically recited. It's not the number of words that transforms the situation, but the faith with which you speak them. And the more you practice, the more you will notice their power, because these are not magic spells, they are spiritual keys that open doors in your consciousness. But maybe you say, at the moment of crisis, I don't remember any phrase. Then do this. Silence, breathing, invocation. 3 steps. 1. Silence. Stop speaking internally or externally. Stop the automatic reaction. 2. Your breathing, deep, slow breaths. 3. Invocation. One word can be enough: God, peace, presence, Christ. Stay there a few seconds. In that state of attention, the Spirit will begin to work. An idea will come. An emotion will dissolve. A door will always open. Once at a train station in New Jersey, a young man approached me, agitated. His train was cancelled. He had an important interview and didn't know what to do. I put my hand on his shoulder and said, "Breathe. Repeat after me. God has a better plan than mine." He repeated it 2-3 times. 10 minutes later, someone offered him a ride that dropped him exactly where he needed to be. But beyond that, he told me, what impressed me most wasn't that I cried, but that I stopped being afraid. That is what treatment does. It transforms your state of consciousness, and when you change inside, the world begins to reflect that change. Don't wait for a crisis to practice it. Use small moments, minor annoyances, little delays. Each one is an opportunity to train in spiritual mastery. And if one day you forget all the words, remember this: I am in God and God is in me, and there is nothing to fear. This situation also serves the good. Practical exercise, pocket treatment. This exercise is a way to carry a treatment with you, always available no matter where you are. 1. Choose a brief phrase that summarizes your faith. For example, God is here. All works for good. I lack nothing, and I'm at peace. 2. Write it on a small piece of paper or card. Keep it in your pocket, wallet, planner, or bag. 3. Whenever you feel anxiety, annoyance, or setback, touch the paper without taking it out. As you touch it, silently repeat the phrase. Do it with intention, not superstition. 4. Breathe 3 times and observe your mind. Notice how your emotion shifts. Notice the inner space that opens. 5. At the end of the day, before sleeping, take the paper, read it quietly and say, "Thank you for accompanying me today. Tomorrow you will be my key again." Make this treatment a loving, consistent practice, and soon you will discover there is no such thing as an unexpected moment, because everything is part of the perfect plan when you are within God. And then even setbacks are not enemies. They are messengers, signs, God's finger touching your shoulder saying, "Child, remember who you are." Chapter 10. The Art of Being Without Hurry. Hurry is the disease of our time. We glorify those who move fast, who fill their schedules, who never stop. Those who don't rush, who don't respond immediately, who take their time are considered weak. Yet nothing true happens in a hurry. Everything eternal is born in calm. The soul does not grow rushed. Love is not revealed through shouting. Wisdom does not bloom in a whirlwind. Only the superficial thrives in speed, but the deep, the lasting, the transforming, the liberating needs space, rest, attention. It needs, in short, the art of being without hurry. Being without hurry is not laziness or passivity. It is a higher form of inner action. It is moving from the center, choosing consciously, living with full presence. Being without hurry is an art because it requires practice. It requires breaking mental habits installed over years. It requires dismantling the belief that value lies in speed. But when you learn this art, life changes color, rhythm, and depth. Where is this art learned? In the bank line, on the train platform, in a waiting room, in an unhurried conversation, an unplanned sunset, any moment where life invites you to stay. Hurry at its core is a form of fear. Fear of not arriving, fear of not being enough, fear of losing something, fear of not being seen, fear of feeling, fear of being with oneself. That is why when you learn to be without hurry, you don't just overcome hurry, you overcome the fear that feeds it. And when fear falls, the door to peace opens. Remember Jesus sleeping in the boat amid the storm? The wind roared, the waves crashed, the disciples trembled, but he, the Christ, rested. That is being without hurry. That is knowing that even though the world is shaken, God rules. That is having the soul anchored in the center, not on the surface of events. When you are without hurry, time stops squeezing you. It neither lengthens nor shortens. It fills with presence. And in that presence, everything flows with more clarity. What once seemed urgent no longer is. What seemed a problem dissolves. What seemed an obstacle becomes a teacher. Because those who know how to be without hurry know how to see beyond. Once in New York, I was in a very long line to send a letter. In front of me, a man complained non-stop. Every 30 seconds he checked his watch. He murmured, sighed, fidgeted. Beside him, an older woman remained silent. Her face was serene, almost smiling. Curious, I asked, "How can you be so calm with such a weight?" She replied softly, "I am alive, aren't I? This moment belongs to me too. I am here, and that is enough. I never forgot that answer, because that woman had understood something essential. Being is not wasting time. Being is gaining depth. But the world does not teach this. The world teaches that doing is more important than being, that going is better than staying, that arriving is more important than living the journey. And so many run and keep running, until one day they ask themselves, where was I going? What part of my soul was left behind while running? You are not called to that. You are called to remember that you are already whole, that you don't need to run to have worth, that life is not a competition, but an expression of being, and that the kingdom of God is reached not by speed, but by presence. That is why, in every moment you must wait. Say to yourself, this moment is not an obstacle, it is a teacher. I don't have to hurry, I only have to be. And as you say this, you will feel your soul settle, your body relax, your mind unwind. And then begins the art of being fully where you are, without fighting the clock, without resisting the hour. When you are truly present without urgency, you begin to notice things you didn't see before, the kind gesture of a stranger, the architecture of a building, the rhythm of your heart, the beauty of shared silence, the gentle voice of the Spirit saying, all is well. And then you understand waiting is not the empty space between two important things. Waiting is life itself, wanting to teach you how to be. There is no greater gift than this, knowing you don't have to run, that good is already on its way, that God is already working, that you are already whole, and this very moment is enough. Practical exercise, being where you are. This simple exercise will help you cultivate the art of being without hurry. You can do it anywhere, in a line, on a train car, in a waiting room, or even at home. 1. Stop physically. Sit down or stand still, but stop. Do nothing else for a moment. 2. Bring your attention to your body. Feel your feet on the ground, your hands, the rhythm of your breathing. 3. Say mentally, I am here, I don't have to go anywhere right now. This moment is enough. I am complete. 4. Observe without judgment, look around, listen to the sounds. Don't name them, just receive them. 5. If hurry appears, don't fight it. Say hello. Hurry, I don't need you anymore, I am in God. 6. Stay like this for 2 or 3 minutes. Then if you want, continue what you were doing but with a different energy. Do this every day during every wait, and you will see how, without realizing it, you begin to live from another dimension. Not from the clock, not from obligation, but from being. And being does not run. Being simply is, and in that being everything is revealed. Chapter 11, Waiting as a Creative Act. Waiting is not passivity. Waiting is not inaction. Waiting, in its highest sense, is creating. Yes, you read that right. Waiting is a creative act, but only when you wait in God, only when you wait with faith, with purpose, with awakened awareness. I'm not talking about resigned waiting, nor impatient waiting, nor waiting that becomes desperate. I speak of waiting as a spiritual art, a sacred moment in which the soul collaborates with the universe, without anxiety, without resistance, without hurry, because every true wait is a pregnancy of the soul. Something is being formed in the silence, something invisible settles deep inside, and when you know how to wait with peace, you help shape that manifestation. Your faith is the womb, your attention is the matrix, your perseverance is the heartbeat that nourishes the process. And what happens when you don't wait properly? The same as opening an oven too soon. The bread is ruined. The same as picking an unripe fruit from the tree, it turns bitter. But if you wait with understanding, without demanding, without pushing, without forcing, then waiting becomes creating. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, wrote Paul in his letter to the Hebrews. That phrase contains this entire chapter. Faith is not an emotion, it is a certainty, and that certainty has a direction. Waiting. Whoever has faith knows how to wait. Whoever does not know how to wait has not awakened faith, and that is why impatience disguised as hope is confused for faith. Let me say it clearly. When you wait anxiously, you are sowing confusion. When you wait complaining, you are affirming lack. When you wait doubting, you delay manifestation. But when you wait with love, you are creating with God. A woman once wrote to me from Boston, Dr. Fox, I'm in the middle of a very difficult situation. I know I need faith, but nothing happens. I pray, I affirm, I wait, but the solution doesn't come. What do I do? I answered with just one line, are you waiting with faith or are you waiting for the waiting to end? Later she thanked me. She said she understood something profound, that waiting time is gestation time, not punishment, and that she was rushing the process with her impatience, like someone yelling at a seed, "Hurry up and grow." And that, of course, does not work, because everything that is from God has its perfect time, not human time, but divine time, the time when the soul is ready, the time when the vibration is aligned, the time when form does not hinder the essence. Waiting as a creative act means participating with your mind and heart in the invisible work being done. It is not sitting and staring at the clock. It is sitting in your inner temple and saying, "Father, thank you, because you have already heard my prayer. Even though I do not see it yet, I know it is done. This wait is not emptiness. It is fullness on its way." And then you stand firm without wavering, without complaining, without seeking proof, without manipulating. And then what the ancients called a miracle happens. The external manifestation begins to move. People appear, solutions arise, paths open, ideas descend, but all this comes from the hidden work you did in the wait. Remember this: the sower who plants his seed in the ground does not dig every hour to see if it's growing. He knows, he trusts, he waters, he protects, he waits. And that waiting is an act of love. That waiting is silent creation. So too, when you affirm a truth, when you do a treatment, when you visualize from faith, your part is to hold that vibration while the universe arranges the visible. That is your responsibility, not to create the outcome, not to control the how, but to wait with an active soul. Jesus always waited with peace. He did not rush when called to heal Lazarus. He was not impatient when his disciples did not understand. He did not force his hour. He knew that in God everything happens when it must happen. And that is why he said, "My time has not yet come." You too have a spiritual time for everything. Do not hurry, do not stop, just wait with presence. And when the ego rises with its old script, what if it doesn't happen? What if it takes too long? What if it's too late? What if it wasn't meant for you? You simply breathe and respond. I am waiting with God, and with God nothing can go wrong. Practical exercise, waiting by creating. This exercise will train you to wait with creative awareness, especially in situations where you cannot speed up the outcome. 1. Identify a situation you are waiting for, a response, a change, a healing, a job, a reconciliation. 2. Sit quietly, close your eyes, breathe slowly, and become aware of your body. 3. Visualize that situation already resolved. Don't force it, just feel it. Imagine how you feel in that future already realized. No external details, just the deep feeling. 4. Affirm quietly to yourself, "Thank you, God, because it is already done. While I wait, I create. While I do not see it, I strengthen it in my faith. This wait is part of the manifestation." 5. Open your eyes and smile, not with tense hope, but with calm certainty. Do this every day, even for a minute, and you will see how waiting fills with meaning, because you will no longer be waiting for something. You will be creating with your wait. And that is the greatest power of the awakened soul, knowing that love is not coming. Love is already here. It is only waiting for you to wait for it. Like waiting for the sun, with faith, with peace, with gratitude. Chapter 12. Waiting as perpetual prayer. Most people pray at specific moments. They pray when something hurts, when something is missing, when fear appears or hope surfaces, and then return to their affairs like someone making a quick call, waiting for a response to come later. But the highest truth is not reached through occasional prayers. It is reached when life itself becomes a constant prayer, when every thought, every action, every silence, and every wait is an ongoing conversation with God. In this way, waiting ceases to be a nuisance. It becomes perpetual prayer. It is not about endlessly repeating words, nor living with artificial solemnity. It is about being in communion. It is about staying connected to the source while the world spins, while you wait your turn, while everything seems slower than you wish. When you turn waiting into prayer, you are no longer waiting for something to happen outside. You are remembering who you are inside. You are reaffirming your faith. You are breathing the presence of Christ within you. This is the state Jesus called watching and praying. He didn't say to repeat pleas without stopping. He said to remain awake in the awareness of God, and waiting is the perfect ground for that awakening. Why? Because it stops you, puts you face to face with time, confronts your impatience, and then, if you choose, leads you to silence. And silence, when inhabited by faith, is one of the highest forms of prayer. Many have asked, How can I pray all day if I have responsibilities? How do I turn a line, a waiting room, a traffic jam into prayer? Isn't that impossible amid noise and distractions? My answer is always the same. It's not about changing what you do. It's about changing where you do it from. It's about praying with your attitude, your vibration, your breath. You're in line at the bank. Breathe deeply. Feel the life in your body. Think, God is here. That thought is already prayer. Are you waiting for news? Place your hands on your heart. Mentally say, what is coming is already blessed. That affirmation is already prayer. Are you waiting for someone who hasn't arrived? Look at the sky. Look at your hands. Say, in this moment, I lack nothing. I am. And there you are praying. Prayer is not an act, it's a state of connection, surrender, alignment. A state in which you do not talk about God or talk to God, but speak from God. And that can be done, must be done, in every waiting. And think of the sundial. It has no hands, makes no sound. It only marks the hour when light touches it. So should be the soul that waits. Still, open, receptive, full of expectant silence. When you wait like this, you are praying because your mind is centered, your body is present, and your heart is at peace. That is perpetual prayer. It does not ask, it does not demand. It knows God acts, knows life manifests, knows good reveals itself, and because it knows, it does not need to be restless. It simply waits with love. And what happens when you pray like this? Everything changes. Not because the world changes, but because you have changed. And as in the law, your world is a reflection of your consciousness. When you pray while you wait, you bless your surroundings. People calm down, the atmosphere softens, solutions accelerate, answers appear, not by magic, but because the presence of God, when expressed through you, orders and heals what it touches. A woman wrote to me from Mexico, Dr. Fox, I have transformed my life by turning waiting into prayer. Before, I got impatient about everything. Now when I wait for something, a message, a call, a person, I don't get upset. I breathe. I say, I am praying with my waiting. And suddenly everything comes easier. And if it doesn't come, I am still at peace. That woman understood the power you also have, because you don't need a special place, free time, or a burning candle to pray. You only need to choose to live from the soul, not from the rush. And in waiting, the soul has its space, because while the body is held back, the spirit can act. Jesus withdrew to solitary places to pray. Yes, but he also prayed while walking, prayed while speaking, prayed while healing, teaching, living. His life was a perpetual prayer. And you are called to the same, to live so that wherever you are, whatever you do, God's presence is felt in your way of seeing, waiting, responding. And this is not for saints on display. This is for you here and now. The next time you find yourself in a line, a delay, a forced pause, say within yourself, I am praying with my attitude. I am praying with my breath. This wait is my temple. God is here, and so am I. Make that wait an altar without incense, without flowers, without hymns, but full of living presence. Because wherever you remember God, there is a house of prayer. Even if it's a train station, a bench, a hospital, a sidewalk, there eternity touches time and transforms it. Practical exercise, the prayer of waiting. This exercise is simple but profound. It involves uniting breath with awareness to turn waiting into active prayer. Choose a short affirmation. It could be God is here. I am at peace. I trust in good. Everything is in divine order. While waiting, sitting, standing, walking, do this. Inhale gently and mentally say the first part, for example, God is. Exhale slowly and complete the phrase, for example, here. Repeat this for a few minutes. Don't count or control, just breathe, affirm and listen. If you get distracted, smile and return. Distraction does not cancel prayer. It's part of the training. When finished, say inside, thank you for this wordless prayer. Thank you for reminding me that waiting is also loving. And so, chapter by chapter, you have learned to transform waiting. It is no longer punishment, no longer annoyance, no longer emptiness. Now it is prayer, now it is art, now it is creation, now it is presence. And above all, now it is a path. Because every moment you wait from the soul is one more step toward the kingdom of God, which comes not with announcements, hurry, or noise, but with silence, love, and a single certainty. I am with you always to the very end of the age. Matthew 28:20. And in that perpetual waiting, you and God wait together,